everyone, and welcome to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of thecinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and today we are embarking on a mission to save cinema from itself. Perhaps. We're going to be celebrating what the movie is leading me to believe is the most important figure in cinema history, at least recent history, and its savior, Tom Cruise. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are reviewing Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. We're going to start, as we always do, with an icebreaker question before jumping into a spoiler-free review where we'll render a verdict on the film, and then we'll conclude the show with an in-depth spoiler discussion. Also, I think this is a spoiler-free area. We're going to rank the Mission Impossible films worst to best. So many mission questions to answer, and I couldn't do it alone. I have to do it, as always, frankly, with my two partners in the Mission Impossible review business. He's my co-host and award-winning Oklahoma filmmaker, Laron Chapman. Do you choose to accept this mission?
I always choose to accept the mission for you, but you alone.
Flattered. This podcast will now self-destruct with love. Also, really excited to be rejoined. In a tradition, action movies always.
I am something of your action movie correspondent.
You are. Yeah, I kind of look at you that way. I mean, we do The Matrix, we do the John Wicks, and we did Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
This is the third one we've reviewed together, I'm pretty sure.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Fallout, then Part 1, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and then no Dead Reckoning Part 2, just The Final Reckoning. Mm-hmm. So here you are. You're back again. You survived long enough to review another Mission Impossible. Did Tom Cruise save cinema?
You know, it's a loaded question in many ways.
Depends on how you define saved.
Depends on your definitions. I guess what I'll tell you is I don't know if Tom Cruise saved cinema this time. I can tell you if anybody has the power to save Shelley Miscavige, it's Tom Cruise. And so he should probably get on that. That seems like a more pressing mission for him to be accepting than any more Ethan Hunt festivities. And hopefully, God willing, this is the last time I'll ever have to accept this mission. I really hope this is for real the final reckoning and not sort of the Final Friday situation.
Mm-hmm. Tom Cruise got asked about this on the press tour, and he had a very brilliant non-answer.
Yeah.
That if you're not, if you don't know what to look for, you're going to think, yeah, this is definitely the last one. He says, well, we didn't call it final for no reason. That doesn't mean that it's the final one. He's just leading you to believe that that's the assumption you will make. Mm-hmm. He wants you to assume, but he doesn't say. So that way,
reckoning,
when they make
final,
who was it him or Aquari that said something about Harrison Ford was doing an 80-year-old Indiana. So I know I saw a quote. Was it Tom that said that too?
Yeah.
Of course.
So is it the final reckoning? Well, it's on the poster. Tom Cruise agrees it is on the poster, and he says that there is a reason it is on the poster. He doesn't say that reason is because it's the final one, but yes. This is the final reckoning. Listeners, if you enjoy Final Reckonings or our Final Reckoning with the Mission Impossible franchise on this podcast, please let us know by leaving us a rating and review on your preferred podcast app. That way we can get discovered by more listeners just like you. And unlike Tom Cruise, you don't have an option. You really just have to accept the mission to leave the review because, do you want IMF crawling over your house? I don't want that for you. So you might as well jump into it. Real quick, we do have a short programming announcement. We are here recording this on Memorial Day, actually, heading into the beginning of June somehow, which means that the Dead Center Film Festival is right around the corner. And that means our coverage is starting next week with a sneak peek preview episode where I'll be joined by Laron and a couple of the other programmers who have been working very hard on the festival to give you a little sneak peek at what all you'll be watching at the festival. Of course, if you head on over to cinematropolis.com during the Dead Center Film Festival, I probably should have the date set for that, right?
It's the 11th through the 15th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There we go.
I built my whole life around it.
The fact that I've been saying it so often and had a blank stare moment and you just caught me with it.
Don't worry.
I usually write it down. I was like, wait, I didn't write it down. Dalton coming in clutch.
I've got people coming in from out of town. I'm going to have guests at my house. It's pretty much the only reason I knew.
Yeah.
He's like, I need to know.
Yeah, exactly. So the Dead Center Film Festival, which is the June 11th through the 15th, we're also going to have written essays from some of our Cinematropolis contributors that you can check out, both during the festival, but largely the week afterwards. And then, as always, we'll have a recap podcast discussing Dead Center when it's all said and done. And, who knows? Might have a few filmmaker interviews sprinkled throughout. We'll see. It's full of surprises. It's a 25th anniversary. You can get your passes today at deadcenterfilm.org. Now, once the Dead Center Film Festival coverage is over, we're going to return to our normal programming with a review of 28 Years Later on Wednesday, June 25th. And, man, I think I'm ready, Laron, for the zombies to make a comeback. Not in the way that they destroyed pop culture with Walking Dead, but I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready for like zombies as a pop culture horror icon to come back. I just rewatched 28 Days Later over the weekend.
Yeah.
Man, holds up. Zombies used to be cool, guys.
Have you seen Rewatched Weeks Later yet?
That's next on the docket.
We've got a GoodTrash. We've got a Weeks Later drop, a Patreon sponsored Weeks Later episode dropping soon. Yeah, I'm hope I held up really well for me. I think it is pretty much on par with the original for the most part.
Yes. Okay. If I get done with this podcast before Lauren goes to bed, I know what we're doing. All right. Because immediately afterwards, she's like, can we watch 28 Weeks? And I was like, nah, not today because we got XYZ stuff to do. But I am just very excited to go back to Weeks.
Yeah.
That is what we have in store for you in the next month. And then after that, we'll be back with, all the normal stuff, the dinosaurs, the superheroes, all the summer stuff that we always talk about. Hopefully good versions of those things. And not bad versions. No pressure, James Gunn.
Yeah.
You only have the entire DC filmmaking, industry riding on your shoulders with this one movie.
Yeah.
But we'll see. A lot of good stuff coming out this summer. Well, a lot of potentially exciting things coming out this summer. Hopefully it's all good. With that said, let's jump into our icebreaker question. This is a fun one. What is your favorite series finale and why? Why? Because Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is allegedly the final entry in the Mission Impossible franchise. And if it isn't, it's going to feel real weird that we just spent an entire movie doing a clip show to make you give it that series finale feeling. So I thought, let's talk about some good series finales out there. Preferably film, but also could be television. So, Laron, I'll kick it to you first.
Well, I don't want to steal yours, and I feel like I might be doing that with this because we share a lot of the same beloved series. But I'm going to go with Richard Linklater's Before series.
So good.
I just find that those movies are just so soulful and, say so much about just the life and relationships and just the human condition. And I find that it's what I love about those movies is every season that I rewatch them, I find another movie that I prefer over the other. So it's always shifting, focused, which ones I like. I as a younger person, I always liked the original, the most. And then, as you get into the throes of life and relationships and you get a little bit more wisdom behind you, the other ones just start to resonate for different reasons. Now I'm married, so I'm pretty sure the Before Midnight will start to become more resonant with me too. So,
yeah, Before Midnight, I haven't rewatched that one since getting married. My wife hasn't seen it, so I'm saving it for a special occasion. Okay. Mostly once there's no way she can back out of the deal because that movie certainly makes you feel things about marriage.
Yeah.
Well, great selection. I do like that quite a bit. Dalton, Stuart, what is your pick here?
I really sort of struggled with this because the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, a lot of these are Final Friday situations where they're sort of teed up as a series finale and then, of course, they don't end. Now, that said, I want to give some love to Revenge of the Sith, and Return of the Jedi 2 as well, but to a lesser extent.
Just rewatched Revenge of the Sith recently in the theatrical re-release.
Yeah, I didn't get to catch that. I really wish I had, but I think pretty, widely regarded to be the most successful of Lucas's Star Wars prequels. And I think of the 3 Star Wars trilogies, the only one that has that distinction of the third entry being easily the strongest of the trilogy. So I think that's, good for them, I say. Return of the Jedi, the first finale to really win my heart, of course. But really, Caleb, you do have to turn to the realm of TV for some of the best ones, I feel like. So I know you and I are both great lovers of The Leftovers, and For My Money, is that on your list?
I had it written down. Yeah.
I wondered if you did. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of my very favorite series finales of all time. And my other pick is TV and movie, but you got to give it up for Uncle Dave in the finale to Twin Peaks: The Return. What a you know, and an ending that offers closure and yet no closure. And how could you ever have a closure on a story like Twin Peaks? It simply resists the urge to give it such closure. You know, it's not that kind of story. So those are some of the things I thought of when thinking about, you know, stories that really went for a long run and kind of nailed their closing. And Twin Peaks definitely feels sort of kindred with Mission Impossible in that it is sort of this holdover from the 90s in many ways that carried on for, you know, double decade stretches.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick. You know, especially R.I.P. David Lynch. You know, he went out with a bang. Really?
Yeah.
With the return. So
yeah, hell of an ending for a career for sure.
I still can't get my hands on that total box that they put out because it's always sold out.
It's nigh impossible to find.
I regret not pre-ordering it the day I saw it. Went for pre-order. I was like, I'll get it when it's out. Bad call on my part. Yeah, to your point, Dalton, a lot of these are Final Friday situations. I had a couple marked down here. I'll throw out Toy Story 3 would have been a phenomenal trilogy capper. And yeah, I like the 4 is actually still pretty good, but 3 would have been put such a definitive statement on those characters and the relationship to their owner, all that stuff. Really emotional. Again, 4 does not ruin 3, but it's also like, it's kind of like the epilogue you weren't really asking for. Right. Even if it's good, you're kind of like, yeah, but 3's still the real finale, right? You know, that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm going to throw out a couple of less common ones, you know, because there's also stuff like The Matrix, where you have The Matrix Revolutions, but then we got Matrix Resurrections, right?
Which isn't even going to be the final Matrix movie, as we've been hearing.
Allegedly. Yeah, we'll see. So. I'll believe it when I see the trailer. Yeah. So I would say easy one. I do think Return of the King is a great finale. Now, Dalton, I know you guys just did recently you did all 3 of the Lord of the Rings movies, and I do think that one emotionally it just hits all the beats. Emotionally, I don't feel like there's a stone left unturned. It's not that like everything's wrapped up in a proper fitting bow as so much as you feel like it is, and you feel like you get a proper goodbye that's full of all the range of emotions. Some people would say probably a little too much time in the goodbyes, and I can't say I fully disagree, but you know, it works every time I watch it. Less conventional, but I do think it's a great finale if we don't get another one. Jackass Forever.
Sure.
Oh yeah,
man, that was one I didn't expect to like.
Inspired choice,
you know. Well, you know, it's one of those things when you're watching. I didn't ever have that much affinity for those ones, other than I thought they were just kind of dumb fun. But the 4th one, because they've been doing it so long and they've been friends for so long, all of a sudden it feels like there's this camaraderie I have with them.
Yeah,
that I didn't know existed.
It was an interesting send off. I remember we did a podcast on it. It was an interesting send off to it. Where I mean, assuming it's the last one, that it just. I remember thinking what it was like to be a kid watching those and saying like, well, I do care about these people. I don't know. You know, I mean, there's a connection you have to it, even if it's not something you watch religiously. You know what I mean? Like, so that it was a nice nostalgic comeback that you didn't think would pay off well.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It was just very surprising emotionally.
Emotionally surprising.
Maybe it was because we were coming out of COVID, but I just remember thinking
we were just.
I was like, what?
Just COVID brain.
I'm feeling things watching a Jackass movie.
Generally melancholy about everything existing life.
And turning to the realm of TV, yes, I had The Leftovers written down. Beautiful. Again, I think what I'm noticing is I gravitate towards the emotional satisfaction that I do necessarily like all the plot.
Well, you get attached to characters. You want the payoff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which I think The Leftovers does in spades, by the way. I'm going to throw out Better Call Saul. I actually think is a tremendous series finale. And it's, you know, they never gave us the impression that it was going to be the series finale for all of the Breaking Bad universe stuff, but that's definitely what it is because they do bring in a lot of different, not necessarily dangling plot threads, but elements from both the shows and even the El Camino movie sort of back into the last couple episodes in such a way that you feel like it's a very definitive end to all of the ideas Vince Gilligan and team wanted to explore. And for Saul Goodman or Slippin' Jimmy, you know, he is given a very, I don't know, it was far more satisfying for me than the Breaking Bad finale in that this is a guy who's sort of reckoned with who he is and what he's about and has is facing the consequences in one way or another in a way that feels very honest. Whereas, I feel like Walter White, to his grave, is still lying himself just a little bit. But anyway, I think that's a really, really underrated series finale that not a lot of people made it to.
Well, I just thought of a film finale that hadn't occurred to me. And you have to ignore a reboot, or a remake, and a crossover. I think Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a really cool end to that franchise. I think that's, doing again, obviously kind of a rough draft for Scream in some ways, but I know you guys are fans of Freddy. So I was just thinking of that as we were kind of sitting here talking about things that actually situate themselves as a series capper.
I mean, it's a series capper
for sure.
Because we get a remake, but it's in no way tied
in a crossover.
In Freddy
but
Jason's account.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's a proper sort of like, oh, that's one that they actually did end everything on. And again, like I feel like having your finale be like the movie became too big to be contained by the movies. That's a fun idea.
It's cool, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, with that said, listeners, what are some of your favorite series finales? You can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematropolis, at the Cinematrop, on Instagram, or send us an email at thecinematropolis@gmail.com. With all that said, let's jump into our spoiler-free review of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
This can't all be true.
Every word. CIA Black Vault break-in.
Am I reading this correctly? The Kremlin bombing?
In fairness, the bomb was actually meant to kill him.
He gassed a security briefing.
That was just 2 months ago.
This explains the handcuffs. It's still not clear why he's here.
If we want to bring the world back from the brink, we have to deal with him.
Should he choose to accept?
Smart people on every side are close to panicking.
What exactly is your plan?
According to IMDb, oh, you guys are going to love the synopsis. It's also the same synopsis on Rotten Tomatoes because I didn't like this one, so I tried to find another one. But this is what we got. It must be official. Tom Cruise holding all these people at gunpoint to post this as the synopsis. Our lives are the sum of our choices.
No.
Tom Cruise is Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. That's the synopsis.
I hadn't even pre-read that in our show notes, and you know what? That's how dare they?
I feel like it's the same one on like 3 different places. I was like, I guess that's
that definitively makes my decision about the movie then, about what it's about and what it should.
It is certainly a precursor to what we're going to talk about here, I think. So this is The Final Reckoning is the 8th film in the Mission Impossible film franchise. The film franchise that started back in 1996. So it is 29 years old. Yeah, 29. Yeah. The Final Reckoning is also writer-director Christopher McQuarrie's 4th film. Technically, the part 2 to Dead Reckoning, although they changed the titles a little bit. We'll get into that probably somewhere in this discussion. Now, this film, along with Dead Reckoning Part 1, has been in development since back-to-back sequels were announced in 2019 after the success of Fallout. This film, The Final Reckoning, and its predecessor, Dead Reckoning, were both victims of several shutdowns. The former, Dead Reckoning, being largely due to COVID shutdowns. And this film, The Final Reckoning, largely due to WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes of 2023. And again, worth noting that The Final Reckoning was originally titled Dead Reckoning Part 2. I'm kind of annoyed because I still have my midnight, or I guess not midnight, whatever it was, the IMAX launch poster, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Now I have a poster that just says The Final Reckoning. There's no Part 2, so the symmetry and the naming conventions here is driving me nuts.
Yes.
This film features several returning cast members, more on that in spoilers. Newcomers include Holt McElhaney as Serling Bernstein, Janet McTeer as Walters, the Secretary of State, Nick Offerman as General Sidney, Hannah Waddingham as Rear Admiral Neely, and then Tremel Tillman as Captain Jack Bledsoe.
And Angela Bassett as Madam President.
Right. But she's returning.
Oh, it's true.
From
Fair,
2 movies.
fair enough.
But yeah, she is now the president. She is now Madam President. Thank you.
And she
Angela
gets
Bassett.
introduced as the CIA director in Fallout. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Big leap.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't be the first.
I think it's interesting. It's like Tom Cruise or Christopher McQuarrie. They just watch a lot of TV. They're like, oh wait, this guy from Severance, he's real good. And to be fair, Tillman is very good. Let's cast him. That girl from what's the other show? Ted Lasso. Get her on here. She's
Man,
really
who's
popular.
great is Cole McElhaney in Mindhunter. Can we get him?
Yeah, a lot of character actors here. And, I need to give a shout out to was it Katie O'Brien, right?
Katie O'Brien. Yeah.
I didn't. She wasn't listed because, frankly, it's
kind of a very small role.
tiny role, but she's here.
Yeah.
Her guns are here.
She has a presence.
Yeah. It is definitely a who's who of like people Tom Cruise thinks look cool brooding and then like throwing cool looks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great cast, regardless. This film has a budget of somewhere. It was very hard to nail down exactly how much this cost officially, but it is officially somewhere between $300 million and $400 million for this film.
One of the most expensive movies ever made.
Right after
Dead Reckoning Part 1. Yeah. So, combined, way up there. Way up there.
And we should note, and actually I should look up this number, the Dead Reckoning actually underperformed. We might talk about that a little bit too, because, so Dead Reckoning Part 1 was budgeted at $291 million, and it made $571.1 million, which was especially coming off of Fallout, about $200 million less.
Yeah, Fallout had or I guess currently has the highest total gross of the franchise.
I think it's like $790 million, I think, if I'm not mistaken. It was a big letdown box office wise, even though it still made solid money, given that it was such an expensive movie, it needed to be like massive. And this one needs to be even bigger than Fallout to be successful. So we'll see how this goes. The good news for Tom Cruise and everyone over at Paramount is the film opened with a franchise high record of $63 million domestically on its Friday to Sunday, with a total of $190 million worldwide. So this certainly got some legs, especially overseas. So,
Plus it's a holiday weekend, you know?
Yeah. I haven't looked at the numbers for Memorial Day yet, but they were looking promising from what I hear.
Good for them, I suppose.
So that's a little bit about The Final Reckoning. Gentlemen, let's get into our overall thoughts on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And Laron, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, I mean, I saw your guys' Letterboxd reviews before this because I can't not read beforehand. My perception's always going to be colored no matter what, because I can't stay away from the reviews or the teasers or the trailers or any of the things that they give at me. I just, I consume all of it. And I was hell-bent on saying that you both were going to be totally wrong. And then I saw it. And
I would have, if I was in your shoes, I would have done exactly the same thing.
But you know what, guys? I saw the movie, and I couldn't be more, I think, aligned with the table. I have to preface this by saying I did enjoy this film. I just think it's overstuffed. I think it's it's up its own ass a lot, quite a bit, man.
Up its own ass.
More so than that. I think there's, to a certain degree, it always has been, but like in a cheeky, like charming sort of way. Here, it feels just very self-indulgent.
Like whenever you have Alec Baldwin doing the Ethan Hunt is Manifest Destiny, he's doing it with such conviction, but with a little bit of a wink that it's hilarious.
Yes.
Imagine that same statement without the hilarious delivery.
It's kind of like the weird prophesizing thing they did with.
He's the savior, by the way.
Exactly. Well, right. It's kind of like the weird, the religious dogma they kind of threw into like the Fast and the Furious franchise, where like all of a sudden he's this deity that, like, you know what I mean? It feels very, very like, come on, guys. Like, I get it. You want to synthesize the entire franchise, where that seems to be a trend this summer. With films like Final Destination, like let's have a retrospective about the entirety of the franchise and what it all means together. And what it all means together here is that it's a little long in the tooth, and this still could have been 30, 40 minutes shorter, and you could have streamlined this movie, and it probably would have been higher higher ranking in the franchise, I feel like, because there are 2 spectacular set pieces in this movie that I think without this movie, this wouldn't work, but so much is hinged and built around those 2 events, and they are extended. I'd say between the 2 of them together, it's a good 45 minutes of the movie. And they are worth the price of admission. I would say those 2 things, but the movie, unfortunately, surrounding that just lacks sophistication, and it feels like it's just like clamoring to be profound, and it doesn't need to be, and so it kind of robs certain moments that should be poignant with being just kind of cheesy, So that's just my general assessment of it. Yeah.
So the highs are high; they're very high, but it's very overstuffed on the way there.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Dalton, Stuart, what did you think of the film?
No good.
No good.
I truly brings me no joy to report I come to the table as a hater today. I've put on my hater hat and I say, Tom, hang it up, dummy. I don't know, man. It's so interesting because Fallout was such a successful film and is so fun and just is such a good finale to the franchise. And then they doubled down and made 2 more movies about how they weren't working with the script. And it's just become loathsome, honestly. They have no idea other than, boy, wouldn't a submarine thing be interesting? Let's give a little James Cameron respect and do a weird submarine thing.
For the Abyss. Yep. Shout out.
And let's do some insane wing walking. One of our the oldest things we have as far as a stunt performance, something that even predates cinema. So, the last one was, we have a really good idea for a handcuffed car chase, and we got a really good idea for a train thing. I don't know, man. You just can't keep making your movie all hat, no cattle. You can't just keep saying we're going to figure it out while we're doing the movie. And you can't also then double down and make that the plot of the movie 3 times in a row. It just doesn't work. It's too bad. Fallout could have been a really great conclusion to this franchise. And I liked a lot about Dead Reckoning Part 1. And, as I'm sure I talked about on our last discussion, I didn't get a chance to re-listen to it. There's a lot of fun to be had in there, but honestly, watching Final Reckoning and then rewatching Dead Reckoning afterwards, I'm just left feeling like both of these are just complete misfires and don't really justify themselves for my money. As much as the wing walking is some of the most incredible stuff I've ever seen in a movie. I don't know how you even rehearse something like that. Easily as thrilling as the incredible motorcycle chase in Rogue Nation, or the climbing of the Burj Khalifa and Ghost Protocol. I would say, look, it was really cool that Tom Cruise learned how to fly a helicopter in 6 months or whatever. But even as cool as the dogfight or the helicopter dogfight in Fallout is, I don't think it holds a candle to this biplane dogfight /
It's a very similar. It's a very similar set piece, but clearly significantly more sophisticated and risky than the helicopter.
Yes, absolutely. And yet, you simply, bringing back a very minor character from the first Mission Impossible is not enough. Even if you give him the most adorable spouse of all time, that does not make it, add up to anything, unfortunately. This movie also becomes so hampered by the constraints of having Ethan Hunt's adversary be Skynet. They couldn't really quite figure out what the limitations and rules for the entity were in Dead Reckoning, and even more so in this one. Dead Reckoning has this whole kind of subplot about how everything has to be analog and they can't trust anything digital. But even halfway through that movie, they kind of give up on that idea. And it's by the time we get to this one, very little is given to the idea that you can't trust digital communication while fighting the entity. It never really comes up in this final movie, and I was shocked that like the analog
except
stuff
for the planes, which they
planes.
call out specifically, and it's analog, so that
the entity can't do anything.
And also, I have an extra one that's a different color. Ah, yes,
Well,
yes, Mr. Hunt.
If he knew anything, he'd have gone for 3. Triple's the safest. Triple's is best. Speaking of Bob Odenkirk, sorry, thinking about him, and I think you should leave sketch. Clearly, the movie I was more excited by this Memorial Day weekend was the wide release of Friendship. And that's honestly what I want to be thinking about. And Tom Cruise instead has infested my mind with the entity, and I can't stop thinking about what a dumb villain it is.
This
for the movie.
is the entity's reality.
Apparently, and I guess that's sort of what I'm left with. Is it? Boy, it really is frustrating that they made. We were talking to a friend of mine before we sat down to record, who said something that I love, which is they made their most ridiculous premise their most serious movie.
Yeah.
And it really, the movie just does not bear under that weight. You can't be doing this sort of silly AI plot and make it the most serious in the franchise, especially when, you've got this human villain you don't really know how to make into a real character or give him anything meaningful to do. Like, the stakes just never feel real in this movie in a way that...
Well, this is the problem you run into when the stakes get so big, they become meaningless.
But, I feel like so many of the Mission Impossible movies have had those world-ending stakes, right? Like, they're all about saving the world, and that can be a tricky needle to thread as superhero movies have shown us for the last decade plus. But I always feel like, even with most of, 1 through 6, I feel like the Mission Impossible movies often manage to find good character, emotional stakes that make everything feel earned.
Exactly.
And I'm just pretty much out on this one entirely. I don't see myself returning to it. I might look up the biplane fight on YouTube here in a few months and go, wow, that really was crazy. But I can't imagine sitting down for all 3 hours of this again anytime soon.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention the runtime.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to that.
Almost 3 hours long. So Laron says the highs are high despite this overstuffedness. Dalton says it's straight up bad, even if there's some cool things in it. I'm gonna come down probably kind of closer to Laron, but also in the middle. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna say. I have some comparisons I'm gonna make, and none of them are gonna be flattering. So let me just start by saying unequivocally, like, this movie has, yes, 2 of the most incredible sequences in any mission movie. Yes, the biplanes. There's a thing where we go underwater. And while underwater stunts aren't typically my thing, I think what was more impressive about this one was just the way they edited and put it together. It's very stress-inducing. Everyone in our theater, or at least people sitting next to me, everyone was like, oh, ooh, like you could see visceral reaction to just the situation. And I thought it was paced pretty well in terms of like the threat in his life. How do they give him this sort of like threat? Since we know most of this was probably done on like a soundstage or something like that. And they come up with some really clever ways for you to make it feel like they string it out. So it's like, oh, and now he's got to take his clothes off in this freezing cold water. Just a lot of clever things like that. So I think that sequence also works really well. So on those 2 things alone, I do think this is absolutely a must-see on an IMAX screen, because I don't think either of them are going to be nearly as impactful at home, especially the plane sequence. And it really is just edge of my seat, Mission Impossible fun that I love from the best of them. Fallout, Rogue Nation, it's got it all in that sequence. However, let's get to the comparisons. So let's start with the first one. And this is much like, actually this is 2 in 1. Another movie, when the movie starts, I immediately knew. I was like, uh-oh. It's going to sound way harsher. And I promise I still am giving this a positive review. The Rise of Skywalker. The second that movie opens, the second you get the dead speak, and you're like, oh, that's not good. And then you get to the very first scene of Kylo Ren doing whatever he's doing on that planet. Just the editing style that I'm watching is completely out of sync with what I've seen in all the previous movies. Okay. This movie has the same problem where it's like, oh, hey guys, clip shows. clip shows. You guys remember all the missions that have been leading to this?
Especially if you just did the rewatch.
I don't know. I know.
Previously on, and previously
None
on.
of them do that, though. Yeah. None of them do that. No. Not one of them. I mean, you'll get some like allusions. They'll tell you, and this happened in the last. If you remember this guy from the last one, he did this thing.
They've always been so light on continuity, and that's always been such a strength.
Strength.
Yes.
100%. And this movie hits you over the head with, remember this, remember that? And it doesn't.
Do you remember this again? Because sometimes they go back to the same scene.
Multiple times. Okay, Laron, I'm not kidding you, because that leads me into. Okay, so the comparison I want to make is twofold. And I have another one that I'm going to bring up in a second. But number one, when it comes to just, you start watching a movie and it is immediately you're like, oh, this is not vibing like what I'm used to seeing in a mission movie. This is The Rise of Skywalker. The TV clip show, the Seinfeld finale, where you're like, hey guys, remember these characters from before? We're going to cut back at every point. They're going to do it multiple times because apparently the audience can't pay attention long enough to absorb what you've already shown them. And then related, this movie commits a lot of cardinal Caleb sins, one of which is you never, and I mean never, flash back to a thing you just showed me less than 5 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. And this movie does it over and over. Hey, you guys know what that poison pill looks like? I bet. Do you know, Laron, do you remember the poison pill, what it looks like? Do you
remember? It's been 5 minutes, but now that you bring it up, I don't think.
I'll ask you in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's constant. Like, I'm not stupid movie. I know this is all. The writing, I think, is quite frankly a mess. So I understand. It seems to me there was a lack of confidence in the writing, which led to them doing just a terrible, shoddy editing job because they don't trust the script, therefore the audience to follow. Okay. So big no on my part. The third comparison I want to make, though, is, and I think I was even saying this off the air, Laron. I was definitely saying this to some people. I was like, I just hope they don't Spectre this shit. And Spectre, as you may recall, Daniel Craig's Spectre, which at that point was supposed to be the last Daniel Craig Bond movie, until it was so bad and got panned so much that they're like, no, we have to make a better finale for Daniel Craig. And then they came back several years later with No Time to Die after they paid Daniel Craig an absurd amount of money. And what Spectre did was they tried to pretend like, oh yeah, this was all part of a plan. You remember this? Let me write in these explanations to questions you didn't have. And now that you're answering questions I didn't have, well, now I'm asking more questions that you don't want me to be asking. It's very distracting. And I think, Dalton, you nailed it. The lack of continuity in this franchise, the light mythology, fun. Like the John Wick movies, fun. But I don't need this through line. I never asked for it. I don't want it.
It's not deep enough for it.
No.
There's not enough. Yeah.
It's not.
Nobody asked you to fill in J.J. Abrams' lazy writing. Nobody asked you to answer those questions.
100%. The J.J. Abrams-ness of it all.
The retcon is so funny. Yeah.
So it's just the script is a total mess, though. I mean, the first hour of this movie, it's just bad writing. It's the clip shows. It's the retconning. I just feel like and it's so complicated that when they actually do have twisty plot elements they introduce, I'm so confused by what's happening now. Who cares? like the date for the original Mission Impossible is supposed to mean something in this, because I can see, well, that's obviously the release date of the original Mission Impossible. Show it to this person, they'll know what it means, and I'm still like, what does it mean? I don't know.
I still don't know what it means.
Right? Like
I figured it out.
What?
Do you want to know? I mean, it's light spoilers, so maybe we save it for the end. But I know I understand the relevance.
Oh my gosh!
Revisit
this in spoilers, because I do want to know.
Yeah, I got you guys.
And on top of that, the last thing I'll say is I know it's not part 2 because they changed the title. So it answers questions I was never asking, therefore raising questions I did not want to ask, and then I'm thinking about those. And then on top of all of that, you're positioning it as, if you're going to position it as the finale, if you're going to position this as part 2 originally, part 1 also asked questions I wasn't wanting to ask, like how did Ethan ever get into the IMF? I was never wondered about that, but I guess if you're going to bring it up, sure. Oh, a woman he loved died. Okay, well, that's interesting. And somehow it ties back to Gabriel. Yeah. Well,
start pulling at a thread and it's just going to start coming unspooled.
You know what this movie doesn't answer at all? Even pretend to try to answer that question that it raised in the last movie, despite me not wanting that, not really caring about that question to begin with. So, yeah, I think it's a mess. But man, oh man, whenever you see the biplane, it's kind of kind of amazing, and it is a lot of fun. And I can tell that there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into that by Cruise and McQuarrie, so I have to give him props for that. But
Yeah.
not a good movie, but I would recommend it for IMAX. I don't know, Laron, what do you think here? Series finale. How does it work? How well does it work?
It's just a bloated mess. But the thing is and I appreciate both the candor and the passion, because I echo all your sentiments. Because I was still entertained by this film. I just frustrated, simultaneously frustrated in between. A cool thing happens and then I'm frustrated again, which is an interesting, like, kind of jerky reaction to have with this, because so many of these movies just go down so smoothly, and it's so weird for this one to feel like so, like it's like you learned from so many of your mistakes. Why did you then just adopt all of them at once?
Well, see, and that's and Dalton, you brought this up earlier too. Like, Fallout is my favorite. Well, we're gonna rank it, but I mean, it's my favorite one by a lot. Like, I rewatched all of them. And I was like, man, this movie just slaps start to finish. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, they looked at it and took all the wrong lessons from the movie.
Absolutely, and I like and again, I still like these characters. I mean, Luther is a huge a character I love quite a bit.
What's the deal with Luther in this movie? We'll talk about it in spoilers. No question. Whatever.
Right. It's just, but yeah, there's so many. It's so shaggy it's top heavy at the front before we ever get to the incredible first sequence. That immediately, I'm glad no one's talking. There's no exposition. We're just in this moment, and I was like, man, this is what I wanted from this. Why did it take 50 minutes to get here? You know what I mean? Like, and then still, like you said, it feels convoluted in ways that it doesn't need to be. So much in a sense that it's people talking about the thing and the go get the thing, do the there's so much like exposition to the point that it's like it becomes not entertaining in that space, and it doesn't feel necessary because no one cares enough about any of the things they're talking about. And if you've been watching the series, you don't need 40 callbacks. You don't need all. I mean, we already know them. We're fans. We're here. This is the final reckoning. We are here. We've already showed up to this franchise. That's why you've been able to continue doing it. So why did you kind of insult every one of your fans and make it seem like, we wouldn't get it?
It's funny. After the movie, I was talking to some friends about it, and they were like, "Well, yeah, they made this for people who are watching this on their couch at home on their phones." I was like, "I guess if that's the bar we're at right now, like in terms of like constantly calling back to the thing you just showed them, I'm like, is that the bar? Have we gotten there yet? I mean, I know it's probably coming, but like, really, like it just seems so. If that's really, and I don't think that's actually the rationale, but if that is, that's so different than what we've seen in the previous 7 movies. I don't know. Yeah, Dalton, that's a longtime fan of the series finale, or you just want to pretend the last 2 don't exist?
Yeah, big time. Okay. Big time. I think Fallout's a really great finale to this franchise, and it's a real shame they, couldn't be satisfied with a job well done and had to double down. And I think we're all worse for the wear, honestly. I don't think this movie has anything to offer other than an incredible wing walk. Like, again, like it's got 2 really incredible set pieces, but a good movie that does not make, and as you said, Fallout is so thrilling from start to finish and has multiple franchise all-time moments, and is still strung together with like an interesting plot that calls back to the previous movie without overly, going too mythology heavy, and calls back to a character we haven't seen in a couple of movies without feeling too mythology heavy and still giving some emotional stakes to things. I think we simply were in a better spot 2 movies ago. This is I can see why they're saying they want to do more if it makes enough money, because they can't be happy with this. Surely I guess they must be. I think they're both so diluted at this point. It's hard to say, but they there being, of course, McQuarrie and Cruise, who've just entered into some dark bargain with one another to make movies without screenplays, which,
well, and it did
luck there.
I mean, Tom Cruise he's been on the up and up between Fallout being a huge hit and then obviously, I mean, reigning champion in terms of keeping Paramount from putting Top Gun Maverick out on Paramount Plus, which the studio really wanted to do. And he's like, no, we're going to hold it. Not over my dead body. It's going to put on the big screen. And they held out, and guess what? It made $1.5 billion. So obviously, I'm just saying his ego is probably as large and out of control as it probably was at that point, it just gave him
But
more
his
clout
business foresight is
to
there.
demand pretty much. No one's going to challenge Tom Cruise, I guess, is my point.
Yeah.
That's probably where we're at.
That seems to be a sad state of affairs, I guess. Somebody really needs to check that guy. He's gone off the deep end. There's a universe where you show me the very anime image of a nearly nude Tom Cruise floating upside down underneath the Arctic ice as the camera flips over. It's a very sort of like, I don't know, Neon Genesis Evangelion image that I'm like, at some level, I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. But that the sort of weird messianic import imparted by that image and by the rest of the movie just sort of was like, you ain't all that, brother. I'm sorry. Like, I like some of your movies, but you're just kind of weird with it at this point, Tom. Like, you really seem to think you alone hold the American Hollywood industrial complex on your shoulders, and nobody asked you to. Nobody asked.
A little bit of a messiah complex.
Big time. Big time. Yeah, I think, Scientology's done a number on that fella, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a huge fan of what he's doing here with the stunt work, and I've liked most of these movies. And I don't hate this one. It's got some pretty powerful highs that I want to go see it on the IMAX screen, but I have to sit through 2 hours of not that. That'll take us to letter grades and also just tap off along with that. Would we recommend the film in IMAX or in one of the premium PLFs, premium formats? Laron, Chapman, how would you recommend this film?
I mean, personally, yes. I think the popcorn film aspect of it does still translate to that big screen, but I do also feel like, this one will have diminishing returns as years go. It already is, for many people. And I feel like this will not be one of the enduring films in this franchise, But I do think maybe a one-time watch in that optimal way will definitely service it better than it will at home. So
yeah. All right. What's the letter grade?
Oh man, I came in here with the B- and I'm gonna
No, stick with your guns. Stick with your guns, Laron.
It's right there at the B-, but it's probably gonna fall to a C+. Just because I agree with Dalton that two incredible stunts does not make necessarily an entire movie, and I feel like this whole movie is hinged on those two things. And if they were anything less than spectacular, this movie would probably have gone down even another letter grade, so I have to be honest about that and say that, yeah, the movie itself is mid, but those stunts are kind of franchise highs for me. So there's something of value for me as a fan of the franchise to pluck from this one, in the same way that I think that Philip Seymour Hoffman is the reason to watch Mission Impossible 3.
Yep.
Even though I think it is, not the best.
Lower on the totem
pole in terms of of action films, or even within this own franchise. So there's something to pluck from here, but that doesn't mean that holistically that this is altogether successful.
Yeah, I think the C+ is a fair recommend. Dalton, Stuart, okay, what would you recommend this for an IMAX viewing at all, or are you telling people to skip? And then what's your letter grade for the film?
Here's what I'll say. I say you take a look at your showtimes, figure out what your options are. Go see
Friendship.
Yes, exactly. Go see Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd in Friendship. And then on your way out, sneak into the IMAX and catch the airplane stuff, and you're good to go. And Bob's your uncle. Yeah, this is not, the juice is not worth the squeeze. I don't think it's hard for people to get out to the multiplex. Like I'm a childless adult, but I know a lot of people who like to go to the movies are not. This is not worth the babysitter. This is not worth spending money out to eat.
We definitely had friends in our group of 20 who took babysitters out for this one. So,
I'm glad they were there. It was fun. Don't get me wrong. It's a fun experience.
No,
if you got a group of people to go with you, it's still like a nice time out at the movies, and you'll have fun talking about it afterwards. I'm not saying it's a full waste of time. Like, if you're excited about this, I'm not saying you got to completely change your early June plans or whatever. But if you're on the fence, stay on the fence. You're fine. You're not missing anything. If you were a huge fan of Fallout, stay home and rewatch Fallout, especially if you've got a good AV setup. It's just not worth it. I think we have so few options with Hollywood so often, and the only choice we have, because we don't have a national film fund, is to vote with our wallets for what the studios are putting out. And I think we deserve better. This is a D+ to a C- for me. Again, I'm with Laron. I gotta say, I do think those two, the Sevastopol AI recovery or whatever, and the biplane fight, are two of the coolest things that have ever been pulled off in this franchise. That I would agree with that entirely. I do think they are quite stunning. But the hour-long clip show is just, I was bored for most of I was laughing at the movie, not with it, for a lot of it. And that's just a big problem.
Yep. No, I think I'm on the same page as you with that. I was doing a lot of chuckling at the movie, trying really hard to convince myself it was intentional, but it's very bad writing. Hey, I did want to give a shout before I give my recommends to Rolf Saxon as Willem Donalow. He is a returning character.
Yeah, I thought he was really good at it.
He is only, I will spoil it only because he, A, is in the trailer, B, has his own character poster. So yes, the dude from the CIA from the first movie who Ethan Hunt heists the knock list from.
They really don't spend much time talking about how most of his appearance in Mission Impossible 1 is having diarrhea.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what's funny. He's a main supporting character in this movie. Yeah. In the first movie, he's literally in maybe a grand total of 2 minutes, and most of it's running in and out of the bathroom.
Physical comedy.
Yes. Yeah. So I gotta give it up for Rolf Saxon. He showed up and actually did pretty good.
No, I think he's great. Did you have the name of the actor who plays his wife? She was incredible. It's easily one of the most charming.
The Inuit.
The Inuit actor.
Lucy, I'm gonna butcher the last name. Lucy T.
Yeah. Okay. Incredible. They do an interesting thing with both her and Pom Klementif, where they, speak their first language, and everybody just sort of Scooby-Doo style gets what they need to get. And I think that's kind of a fun solve for actors or characters in a spy movie all speaking different languages. Is People are good at communicating. People figure it out. Yep. I think that's a fun sort of piece of business. And I think her and the Dunlow family, let's say, I think is the closest thing this film has to an emotional core. Yeah. And I think are very compelling. Yeah. Two characters that constantly had me smiling. I'm right there with you.
I do think you need to see it in the IMAX screen. I mean, what can I say? I think it's an all-timer sequence, and the reality is it's just not going to look as good on your home theater. I would hate the feeling of, man, this looks pretty cool, I guess, but I just saw it on my 40-inch TV at home without a surround sound system, when you could have seen it on a giant screen. It really...
It's immersive.
It's pretty immersive, and in the height, it's just it's an incredible sequence all around. And on that alone, I'd say it's worth the $20 ticket or whatever.
I mean, if you're a premium large format pervert, it's going to be playing at everything. You might as well.
But I to your point, though, Dalton, if you're just someone who makes it to the theater 4 or 5 times a year, if you're lucky, and you have babysitters, I definitely think there's a case to be made for going to a different movie.
Yeah, maybe you haven't caught Sinners yet. Go catch Sinners.
There's Sinners.
There's good stuff at the multiplex right now.
I mean, we've got a lot of stuff coming out later this summer that we hope will be better. I'm gonna give it a C+ also. I also was teetering the line C+, B-. But I think from a script level, this is a big fat F. The characters, the actors doing the characters well, and the set pieces are the only thing bringing this movie up, I think. What would we recommend either alongside or instead of, it sounds like instead of in most cases, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, Dalton?
I hate to shill for the Disney Corporation, but that Andor season 2 sure is good TV, huh?
Great TV.
Ooh, yeah, I'm a big, look, if you're wanting cool spy fiction, that's the place to go right now as far as new stuff that's out. Even Soderbergh's Black Bag from earlier this year, I think is really good if you want a quick 90-minute little treat. That's great. But if you've got 12 hours of TV watching to fill in your life, that's the real franchise treat that's out there right now. And for my money, I think Andor is some of the best spy and political thriller fiction going right now. And it all takes place in the Star Wars universe, wildly enough. And I honestly think, my wife's no great Star Wars fan. She loved Andor. She just caught up with the first season while I was rewatching it, and then watched season 2 with me. And found it all and very enthralling, very emotionally impactful. So I think even if you're not really into Star Wars, Andor has a lot to offer you. And unlike Mission Impossible, does not strain under its own weight and doesn't get swept up in clip show stuff. I think a much better sort of spy narrative going right now, and one that actually has something to say.
Yes.
Which is sort of the most frustrating thing about these last 2 Mission Impossible movies is they say a bunch of buzzwords and cultural talking points and act like they're about something, but really have very little to say. So yeah, I would say Andor. If as far as movie theater stuff, well, we've already talked about stuff that's showing right now. You could go catch.
Andor's a great recommendation. I wouldn't have picked it for this movie, but I think, yes, Beat the Drum. I think it's an incredible television show. I think it's the best Star Wars probably since Empire. But let's remove that recommendation because I think what you said was more important. The people I'd most likely to recommend that to Andor 2 are, number one, people who don't like Star Wars, number one. Number two, people like myself who after Rise of Skywalker were like, I think I'm out. I think I'm done. And Andor comes in with just, some incredible, you said it well, just incredible television, incredible spy drama, incredible story about the rise of fascism and the larger impacts it has on literally everyone and what that does to a galaxy in that scenario. So yeah, great recommend. Thanks for giving me the chance to also just beat the drum.
Oh, happy to.
Great stuff. Laron, Chapman, what would you recommend instead?
So I'm a huge fan of the Bourne Identity franchise, and I think that that's another one that I felt like ended very well. And that is a trilogy. I guess technically they went a little.
They did 2 more, yeah.
They did a little sideways. I don't count those. Yeah. I very much fall out that.
So Tony Gilroy's our guy.
I was just about to say Tony Gilroy.
He's the one. He's the one. No, I appreciate it. If I'm linking of the original trilogy within that, that would be a recommend because I also, more than the action sequences in these, I always like the interplay between characters and the kind of the psychological cat and mouse game that comes along with these things, and that's what I think is missing here with this. It's all the explosion. Look over here and don't listen to this, that sort of thing. And so I feel like it's a more sophisticated, more streamlined series in that regard. And if you like the Bond movies, obviously there's 28 million of those that you could watch instead of.
No Time to Die definitely was a better send off
for
I
sure.
agree with that too. Yeah,
for
sure.
And that's not a perfect movie, but it was a lot better than this movie, I think. Yeah. So I think Dalton, you made the comparison in our Dead Reckoning Part 1 review, if I'm not mistaken, when you called a couple of the scenes in that movie some Metal Gear Solid ass shit in terms of the dialogue.
That sounds like me,
and that
yeah.
has stuck in my brain because rewatching Dead Reckoning Part 1, I was like, no, shit, this is like specifically any of the scenes with like the higher level government folks. It's like people completing each other's sentences, the way it's edited and like very quickly, very Metal Gear Solid. So anyway, I have that association in my brain. So thanks for that. I once played Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PlayStation 3 and I'd only played number 1 before that. Or I guess it was the GameCube remake. Twin Snakes.
Wow.
Now, I bring this up, though, because it's very important to illustrate there is a way to do crazy, convoluted, bullshit finale stuff and still make it really compelling. Because that game, I didn't know who half the characters were. I barely understood the main plot. But you know what? The entire time I was playing it, I was like, this is so fucking cool.
Yeah,
there's just sequence after sequence where you're like, I don't know what's going on, but this is badass, or holy shit, what are they going to do in response to this crazy thing that Liquid Ocelot just revealed? And it's a fun time. And you want to know why? It's got a lot of the same problem. Kojima, this is what he specializes in, which is extremely convoluted, borderline nonsensical, definitely sci-fi, spy, espionage drama. And I wouldn't even say it's good half the time, but you know what Kojima knows how to do that clearly Macquarie, despite having a lot of similar idiosyncrasies in his writing, Kojima knows how to have fun, and he knows all of it's very silly. And so I have a blast. Metal Gear Solid 4, only available on the PlayStation 3. There's rumors it's going to be re-released as part of a collection very soon. Very excited, fingers crossed. But that was what's supposed to be a finale where I hadn't seen most of the story and was completely on the edge of my seat the entire time. And that is what I chalk it up to: great characters, cool moments, and lean into the silly and just embrace it. And this movie missed out on pretty much all of those lessons, in my opinion. So go play that instead. Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, I think is the subtitle.
Guns of the Patriots.
Good stuff. All right, gentlemen, the time has come for us to rank the Mission Impossible series worst to best. I might kick us off on this one just because I just finished rewatching them all and it's very fresh. At the bottom, Mission Impossible 2, John Woo action movie. It's a very bizarre cultural artifact from a very different time. Even in 2000, I feel like it was probably somewhat of an anomaly. And then after that, we have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, a film that I like a lot about but don't love. I do love this train sequence at the end, but again, you have to sit through quite a lot of exposition and nonsensical writing to get there. Just above it is Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, and this one beats Dead Reckoning purely because the stunts are just that much more impressive, but I have the same problem with both of these movies. Then just above that is Mission Impossible 3. I actually like a lot about that movie, and I should probably qualify this. I like all these movies to varying degrees. I don't think there's any of them that I just think are total garbage, but so Mission Impossible 3, Philip Seymour Hoffman, great performance, a little too TV in terms of the plotting and a lot of the production values. And then we get to the Macquarie era here. So then I go Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. That's the fifth one. Before moving into Mission Impossible, the original, which that one's also kind of tough to categorize because it's sort of its own thing, doing a spy espionage film and the more classic meaning of the term versus big stunts. And then Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol being my second favorite. I have some pretty big problems with that movie. I think the third act's kind of a mess, and it leans on CG more than I would like. However, the one thing that really stuck out to me on this last rewatch is it's leaning into the physical comedy significantly more than pretty much every other movie in the franchise, which sticks out. And it's fun. And again, it's fun. It's fun. It's silly. And I find that with Macquarie films, the longer they go on, the more self-serious they get, and the less I like that tone versus the fun team dynamic. And then at the top is Mission Impossible Fallout for me. And what can I say? Henry Cavill's mustache goes a long way in adding some, and also Alec Baldwin's in there. They add a lot of lighter touches that make the movie a lot more fun than we get in the last two entries. Not to mention the Halo jump. Yeah, there's a motorcycle chase in that movie too. And then the helicopter chase. It's wall to wall action set pieces with little moments of character drama spread throughout just to keep things moving. LeBron Chapman, what is your ranking?
This is from worst to best, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I think worst definitively is MI2. Like you said, strange cultural artifact. John Woo, slow motion. Just it feels like a parody of
The later movies.
of the later movies that had not yet been made. But maybe he was on to something. It was prophetic, guys. It was prophetic. He was trying to tell us this is where it's going. And then I guess I would go ahead and put The Final Reckoning here because I do think that outside of those two stunts, that's what's holding it on to me as something that's worth seeing. And then I would put Dead Reckoning Part 1. And then I would put Gross Protocol.
Gross Protocol.
Gross protocol. Gross protocol.
There's some grossness in there.
Some nasty protocols in there.
There's also some gross writing in that movie too.
Yeah, Ghost Protocol. And then I would put MI3. Then I would put the original Mission Impossible. Then Rogue Nation. And then I also agree that Fallout is the best.
Very good, man. It's just tough. There's some of these I like have them like almost grouped in thirds. Like there's the lower ones. Then there's the middle of the pack, and I feel like the middle of the pack I could almost swap them out, like basically from like Rogue Nation, original Ghost Protocol. You ask me any day, I would swap the order. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very cool. Dalton, what is your ranking?
I do unfortunately think The Final Reckoning is the worst Mission Impossible movie. Hate to say it, and I do think Dead Reckoning Part 1 is the second worst Mission Impossible movie. I think they just it's, it's not, the value is not there for me. Then followed closely by Mission Impossible 3, a movie that would be lower if it wasn't for a great Philip Seymour Hoffman villain. And, I think there's the big building jump. They have to do the math on the building jump, and I think that's exciting. There's some stuff I like in 3. I'm going to come out and defend Mission Impossible 2. Motorcycle fight is pretty cool. Diving through the air, firing 2 guns, always cool. Dove's always fun. And maybe
porno music playing.
It was a Metallica music video. That's all.
Yeah, well, this is sort of the one where the template becomes, Tom Cruise is going to do some insane stuff that he should have let a stuntman do, right? This is sort of where they introduce that concept in a lot of ways. I like the John Woo personality of it, and hard to not be charmed by Anthony Hopkins saying, "Well, it's not Mission Impossible, Mr. Hunt." I mean, that's some silliness. Next, Ghost Protocol. Where they really start realizing, we really got to make a meal out of this whole climbing the side of a building thing. We really got to stretch this out. Also, the one where it seemed like maybe they were going to replace Tom Cruise for a little bit, but obviously that went right out the window. Next up at number 3, I do have the original Mission Impossible, which I think is the most spy thrillery of these, and the least of an action movie, which I think is interesting. I agree. It is sort of, as Mission Impossible 2 is a proper John Woo movie, Mission Impossible is a proper Brian De Palma movie. And I think there's a lot to love about both of those sort of having the personality of their auteurs in ways that some of these don't. At number 2, I have Rogue Nation. I think Solomon Lane is probably one of the best villains the franchise ever had. I forget that actor's name, but I do like him quite a bit. He's in Prometheus as well. I think the mountainside motorcycle chase in that is one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Part of that is having ridden my motorcycles for a little bit in my life. I just, thinking about getting that close to pavement with no protective gear on is just horrifying, especially at the speeds they're doing for that chase. And then I think that opera set piece is stunning.
Oh, opera set piece is an all-timer.
And also, Ilsa Faust has the most to do in that one. Ilsa Faust is easily one of the coolest characters in the franchise. And finally, I also have Mission Impossible Fallout. Halo jump, motorcycle, Paris, motorcycle chase, helicopter dogfight, cliffside fist fight. Henry Cavill reloading his hands.
We share top 3, and then shit gets crazy from there for both of us. Both of us.
I kind of like how our lists sort of have interesting overlaps and sort of are disparate in other ways. Yeah.
It's I think that's something. I think most of them are pretty good movies.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But I'm glad we're on the same page about Fallout though, and it is a little sad to say we are now 2 movies past Fallout, and Laron, do you remember how after the Fate of the Furious, you and I were kind of like, I think I'm done.
Which is weird because we were so locked in.
We were so locked in.
We're like, man, after 5, we're like, man, this thing
keep giving me more.
Just give me everything. And then that one let us down. We're like, I'm out.
But then they came back with 9, and I was like, well, it's not a home run, but I'm back in.
I'm back in enough, yeah.
I don't know. It's tough. That's where I'm at. I'm kind of in a similar place with this franchise where I'm like, I don't know if I want more. We'll talk about that. Listeners, what is your series ranking? Again, you can let us know by hitting us up on the social media channels or send us an email at thecinemetropolis@gmail.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not want to be spoiled on Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, go ahead and tune out now.
Your line's not long enough! No shit!
All right, gentlemen.
How do you spoil the plot of a movie with no plot?
I can't explain it. Tell me what
too much plot.
Tell me. Okay, you teased it earlier, Dalton. What does the release date of the original Mission Impossible mean?
Well, the Hannah Wendingham character is the sister of the Emilio Estevez character.
Which is the sister of Emilio Estevez's character.
Sister or cousin or something. But yeah, he's got the St. Christopher medallion in part 1, and they sort of meaningfully do an insert shot of her with the St. Christopher medallion.
Oh, so it was a prop that communicate? Because I was like, I thought the whole time I missed something. What is this?
Yeah, they say she lost somebody that night too, right? And I'm assuming it's Emilio Estevez because I think he has or not. I'm not assuming it's Emilio. I know it's Emilio Estevez because he also has the St. Christopher medallion.
Wow,
that makes sense. But at the same time,
I think it was him.
I felt like Hannah Waddingham was just wasted in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
She's a
That's
great,
like most of
she's a great character actress, and I just felt like they gave her an American accent and gave her nothing to do.
No.
So
this is same with Katie O'Brien. Yeah, this is a movie of like people that Tom Cruise thinks has a strict Colt McElhaney too. Just a movie where Tom gathered up people he thinks have cool faces and doesn't give them anything to do. I mean, I'm glad everybody got a paycheck, but yeah.
I mean, Tremel Tillman didn't have much to do, but he ate the scene up at least.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, he's very good and as a sub captain. Yeah, he's very cool. And again, Katie, the whole sub crew is like very interesting and like kind of immediately communicates this like well-oiled machine of like people that are a real team and work well together. And yeah, no, that stuff's all compelling. It's just nobody actually is a real character. They're just sort of a collection of sort of personality quirks more than. And again, which would be fine because it's a kind of a sprawling action movie. All you really need is a character actor to show up and be cool for a second to sell a scene. But you got to give them something to work with. Like, and I just don't. The movie is so threadbare and held together by duct tape that it just there's nothing there for any of these people to latch onto.
Well, and that's where I just come back to like it's just sad the amount. So the reverse engineering of this film is just upsetting for all the reasons I mentioned in the spoiler-free section. But we even get stuff like Shea Wiggum's apparently John Voight's kid. Like no one was thinking that.
They just say in Dead Reckoning 1. Excuse me. They just say in Dead Reckoning 1 that this is personal for Shea Wiggum somehow. And that's just I guess they decided between movies. They're like, oh, I guess we got to pay that off. He's John Voight's kid. Dumb.
Because super dumb.
What are we doing?
Meaningless. But also Ving Rhames. When did he get sick?
I couldn't.
He was fine in the last movie.
I thought there was something I didn't remember from Dead Reckoning, like some terrible injury he sustained.
He's just in an underground hospital for, inexplicable. And they don't even, all they have to do, and that's the weird thing. They do things like that and don't explain it, but then they give us explanations for all this other stuff that I was like, well, I wasn't asking about that, but okay.
Yeah, the things we want to know, they didn't explain. And then there's other stuff,
Right. Hey, Laron, do you remember what that poison pill looked like?
Oh man, it's been more than 5 minutes now, so I actually have forgotten.
That little little
thumb drive.
The little thumb. They cut back to that freaking thing so many times.
If you're tired of looking at the thumb drive, what'll they introduce the bottle for the genie?
Oh
the crystal thumb drive.
Oh my
the theoretical mega flop drive. So funny.
Gosh. I think it's also worth noting. Here's one that I thought did work in terms of. Well, I love and hate this decision at both points, but in terms of trying to reverse engineer the plot and reverse engineer this film as the series finale to a series that was clearly not tracking for a clear continuity, clear ending. Mm-hmm. The rabbit's foot thing. Two minds of this. Number one, the whole point of the rabbit's foot is you don't know what it is, so it's a MacGuffin, right? Mm-hmm. So on one hand, I hate this decision to bring that back when they cut again in the little clip scene. Remember the rabbit's foot? Yeah, all the clips. I was like, God, why? No, don't do this. On one hand, I hate it on from that point of view. Again, answering questions I really never asked, sort of thing. Number two, though, the one upside, I would say the trade-off is because the rabbit's foot is a part of this story, it is also pretty much the only theme. It gives weight to like the only theme this movie is grasping onto, which is Ethan Hunt's heroic actions unchecked have led to unintended consequences. Now the movie doesn't really grapple with that super heavily, but the idea is,
it feels like an idea they wrote down when they were plotting the first two movies and then kept forgetting to build into the plot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the idea being like, okay, because you traded the rabbit's foot for your wife, well, that led to it started a string of events that led to the entity being created. So Ethan Hunt, it's your fault.
You lit the fire and you have to put it out, sir. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I don't, like you said, I think it's super just a not well baked entree. I don't know, Laron, with any of the retrofitting of the plot. I mean, what did you think of this approach? Did it work for you at all? Were there any things that you were like, it's a nice touch?
No, I do think. Sorry,
I'm gonna get you both on my side by the end of this.
Emphatically, no.
You're gonna be steering people away from this movie.
Emphatically, no. I just think it made things unnecessarily convoluted where they didn't need to be. And I think it was just to pigeonhole, like, how can we connect all these movies again? If we retcon this, then we can bring this back up and do this. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of thought that goes into all of this, at least not sophisticated thought. There's more so like just plug this, plug that, plug this here. It's all there, but the more you sit with it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I will say there's a subplot with the president that I did appreciate the moral complexity of the choice between, having to make that decision to murder millions of people to save, even more people. Like that.
Drop a bomb on a U.S. city to stop a world war.
There's something very timely about that decision that had to be made. Because and perhaps not by accident that was in this. Just seeing kind of certain parallels about things that we're frustrated right now with both administrations, or just politics in general, so I found that an interesting tie-in that doesn't go too deeply into it, but it was at least something I was more invested in than some of the other side character plots. So,
All right, Dalton, anything you want to add about the script, how this is the finale, spoilers on the table?
Nothing other than, folks, this is a good, let this be a lesson. It's fine to do reshoots and fine to do rewrites on set, but boy, you need to know what your movie's about before you start making your movie.
Yeah.
You can't just work backwards from two cool set pieces, unfortunately. It will, again, as they joke about in the movie, like, Ethan Hunt, you just kept doubling down. Tom, Christopher, you just kept doubling down on not writing a whole movie, and it did eventually catch up to you guys. You can't do that for two whole movies. You can get away with that for a movie, and maybe even do another movie that ties into the previous movie's continuity and still get away with it. You can't do a two-parter and not know what the two-parter's about. You got to have something other than Tom Cruise versus Skynet. You got to have it thought out a little bit more.
Was it Skynet or Chat GPT? I wasn't sure.
I don't know. It's the ravings of a 60-year-old man who's confused about what large language models are actually capable of. No, I did not like any of the retcons, unfortunately.
I gotta say, this is sort of going, taking it Virus in a different direction, but the part one component, I actually really did not like the entity as a bad guy in the first movie either. I was like, this is really risky because we're inching into sci-fi territory, which is when that's when you lead to these, you crack open the door to, it's sci-fi. We've got to explain how the entity works for the plot to make sense. So we have to over-explain certain things, but then actually, if you think about it too hard because they didn't do it very well, it all kind of falls apart. And also, all that nonsense is distracting from the things that people actually come to these movies to see.
Yep.
But I was like holding out judgment of like, well, maybe they'll find a really interesting way to pit Gabriel against the entity in part two so that and it'll somehow tie it back into this thing I don't really care about, but maybe that's the human end to how he got into the IMF. Ethan Hunt, that is. And they just dropped that entire subplot. And Gabriel, for reasons I don't understand, is at odds with the entity. He thinks he can control it. Again, how one controls the entity. There's just so many questions that the movie doesn't explain. And I would rather them had just focused on a different kind of human bad guy. Because I really do think choosing that as this like sort of concept. And they even make a joke about it. It's the anti-god, which was a reference to Mission Impossible 3. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no rules. There's all the rules and there's no the rules, and we got to over-explain everything. And now because the scope has gotten so big, we have to have an entire subplot with all these White House people we don't even know or care about. It's just a disaster.
I'm right there with you, man. The whole inability for the movie to track what the rules are with the entity across both entries and the reckoning. Duology. It doesn't make any sense, and they can't make it make sense because they don't know. Right.
Yeah. So I guess that's going back to my criticism, even removing the series finale, but even as a part 2 to the things in the last movie, I was kind of holding out hope that they would have some sort of enticing explanation for how all this stuff was supposed to work together, and it's just a big mess, in my opinion. But, well, any loose ends you guys want to call out? Or do we want to just move into the wrap up here?
That's its own podcast. No, the one you guys did clear up for me was the date thing. The date with the date of the first film, like, and what that symbolized, because I still left confused about that.
That's all Dalton, man. I was the same way. I was like, well, I don't know what that. In fact, I was talking. It wasn't just me either. There was a couple of people.
Up on this table what that meant.
Yes.
But
I think I only remembered because they showed Emilio Estevez getting impaled in the face like 4 times. Yeah, I know. I saw the movie. I remember it freaked me out the first time I saw it as a kid.
Well, guys, I guess the only way to wrap this up is really to ask the question: is this really the final reckoning? Is this the end? I mean, it's set franchise records at the box office, biggest opening weekend for the franchise yet. I mean, not by a lot, but it is a record. But it does still have a long way to go until it hits that, pays for that $400 million price tag plus marketing. So probably ballpark of $800 million needs to make to break even. Tom Cruise is also 62 years old, and he's done a lot of crazy stuff. What should they do next? Laron Chapman.
I don't really need any more of these, but I feel like if they were going to go a different route, then we need to pass the torch. It needs to be something fresh, lean, from the ground up. And I don't mean a reboot. I just mean like it could still be, connected in some way, but I feel like we need a new character to follow and new conflicts and new things altogether. Like basically back to the writing room from scratch again, essentially. And so we don't need to keep pulling from this same well, because it's literally up its own ass now. So it's kind of like it's become circular at this point. And I think in order to get rid of that, and not prolong this any longer and make it more convoluted, you just need to start over, so yeah, with a new face, a new mission, a new thing, a new Ethan Hunt with a different name.
Or just different person altogether.
Yeah, different person altogether, yeah.
Tom Cruise still a producer?
I mean, he might have to be, but I agree he is 62 years old, and he is going to die making these movies if we keep doing it. Because for all the exercise training that he might be doing, those bones are still 62 years old. So.
Although I don't know, we saw shirtless Tom Cruise in this movie and not just shirtless, and his underwear, and he, for 62, I mean,
he could not wait to show everybody his body multiple times in this movie. Yep. We get it, Tom. You're still working on it.
All right, Dalton, what do you think? What do they need to do with this franchise?
Get these two away from each other. These two have gotten high on each other's farts. You got to get Macquarie and Cruise away from each other. Macquarie needs to go make Way of the Gun 2. Get him back with Benicio del Toro and Ryan Phillippe or something. I don't know. He needs to go back to the drawing board on his career. Tom, in a just and good world, Tom would, end up being a Church of Scientology whistleblower and bring the whole scam crashing down. And I don't know, go take the Nick Cage route and only work with directors under a certain age who grew up watching his movies and kind of know what's interesting about him. He needs to find some real Magnolia and Eyes Wide Shut fans to really do something interesting with him. He needs to go enter his wilderness era and do what The Rock's doing and do a weird MMA biopic with the Safdie brother.
Really hope that's what The Rock is doing.
Man, who knows? But all that to say, Tom needs a career pivot. He's got to end his controversial stuntman era. It's got to stop. He's got to do something else. This is all he's been doing for 10 years now, and I don't know that this is how we save theatrical movie going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'd echo that sentiment for both. I think I'd agree. In fact, I wrote down 2 things they should do, and both. One of them was take this whole thing back to scratch, like Laron said, and the other was, or if Tom insists on keep making more, for the love of God, do not let Christopher McQuarrie write and direct it. And that sounds bad, because I've liked most of I liked Rogue Nation, and I love Fallout clearly, and he's worked on a lot of movies I like, but. Clearly, at this point, there's diminishing returns of those two working together, and I am wholeheartedly agree that Tom Cruise has reached a point
I think
he needs to start leaning into his age, because the longer he doesn't do it, the sadder it's going to become.
The more Liam Neeson he looks. Taken 15. Right. So, but I will say, like, I think both of these people are, as I think we're kind of alluding to, are talented independently.
Absolutely.
But it's the convergence of them now.
Yeah, bad dynamic.
Basically, we've hit critical, mass. You guys have stagnated creatively in terms of what you guys can do with each other. So yeah.
Yeah. All that's to say, I still like this movie. I still had I had a great time at the cinema. We had, I accepted the mission, threw it to Dalton. We had like 20 of people come together to watch it in the IMAX. It was a fun time. Like I said, I'd recommend an IMAX screen, but boy, howdy, was I really hoping for a better final entry to the Mission Impossible franchise. And I will say, I really don't think I want another one, though. At least not anything resembling this. So, that's enough of that. Well, gentlemen, this has been such a fun time talking about a movie that I think at least me and Laron liked, if not, with some reservations.
With some heavy, deeply flawed, but like pieces of it.
And Dalton did not like, but it's been fun talking to you guys about it either way. Dalton, where can people follow you in your work until our next action movie conversation?
Yeah, you can find me on the internet at Dollywood Squares, on Instagram and Letterboxd. You can also find the podcast I co-host, GoodTrash Genrecast, wherever you put podcasts in your head, every Friday for nigh on 13 years now. Also, if you are in the Oklahoma City area, speaking of 13th, June 13th, Friday, as part of Dead Center, we'll be putting on a live panel. It's free. It's one of, because it's one of Dead Center's educational events. It's a free part of the fest, open to the public. We'll be at Oklahoma Contemporary at 11 a.m. on Friday, June 16th, discussing the life and work of David Lynch. It's going to be a great time. Got a cool panel of people gathered together, including my city councilor, James Cooper, noted horror author now as well.
Friend of the show. Yes.
Also friend of the show, Dan Bokemper, some other cool people, including David Lynch scholar, should be, and Laron's Dead Center colleague, Paris Burris. It's going to be really fun. That's Friday, June 13th at 11 a.m. at the Oklahoma Contemporary. We'll be celebrating the life and work of David Lynch. Come check it out. And then again, check out the GoodTrash Genrecast.
Check it out, ladies and gentlemen. And I think if you are in the Oklahoma City area, you'd be a fool to miss the David Lynch panel. I think it's going to be a great combo. Hope I can make it myself. Laron Chapman, where can people follow you and all the great work you're doing online?
They can follow my bite-size reviews on Letterboxd at black_cinna_man, and they can follow my king-size Snicker reviews on well, there's a pun there that I won't go any deeper with, at the cinematropolis.com, with my review column, Real Insights with Laron Chapman.
And boy, they are really insightful, I have to say. Always look forward to reading your latest reviews, Laron. Of course, listeners, you can follow me and all the things I'm doing over at thecinematropolis.com or on any of the social media channels at C Masters Talk. That's letter C Masters Talk, Instagram, Letterboxd, all the fun stuff. I kind of took a break from online reviews outside of Letterboxd. I'm thinking, should I make a comeback, guys, or should I just hang it up? Because I think I increasingly find social media to be
insufferable.
Insufferable. Yeah. So I don't know. I keep going back and forth. Watch Andor Season 2. There, I didn't have to put it on social media. I just told you on the mic. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. We'll catch you again next time when we return next week with our special Dead Center Film Festival coverage that begins with our preview event for the 25th Film Festival. Until next time. Dun, 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 dun. I'm doing the Mission Impossible 2
I'm
theme.
sprinting in my chair.
Yeah, I'm rappelling down from the ceiling to steal your files.
Dun, 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 dun.